Recently released audio recordings reveal conversations that happened between the Attorney General and individuals who were later implicated and in some cases convicted in the Feeding Our Future scandal. In those recordings, the Attorney General...
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
State your point of order.
Masons 124, paragraph 1, in debate, members must confine remarks to questions before the body and avoid personalities. The debate here is not any individual. It is the policy and the amendment.
Representative Niska.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Attorney General was asked in those recordings to use his authority to protect businesses under investigation for wrongdoing, and rather than distance himself or remain neutral to allow the legal process to unfold, he responded in those recordings, "Of course, I'm here to help."
Mr. Speaker, point of parliamentary inquiry.
State your point of parliamentary inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, there was a point of order, and I didn't hear a ruling or any resolution of the point of order. Was there a resolution to it?
I'll remind the body that there was no ruling made by the Speaker as to the point of order that was just stated. Representative Niska.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Attorney General in those recordings even urged the individuals, let's go fight these people. He was offered campaign contributions during that meeting, contributions that he later accepted. The release of those audio recordings raises questions about what's going on in the Attorney General's office that go directly to the need to pass the legislation that we had previously debated, House File 20. Although he has insisted that nothing came of the meeting, his office blocks disclosure of closed investigative
point
data.
Of order.
Masons 124.
The A11 will help ensure that what happens behind closed doors in the Attorney General's office sees the light of day. We can protect people's privacy while shining a light on what the Attorney General's office is doing, who is influencing that office, whether it's those under a criminal investigation, nonprofits, corporations, or billionaires with political agendas, because Minnesotans have a right to know when their Attorney General's office is working with them. Minnesotans have a right to know whether the Attorney General is telling the truth that nothing came of that meeting. That's why the A11 is so important.
They thought they could keep the lid on this forever. Up in the north, a massive crack just formed in the wall of silence they've built around the state government. We're not just talking about a simple mistake or an oversight here. We're talking about a rot that goes straight to the top, the kind of ethical disaster that makes you wonder who's actually running the show. For a long time, the elites in the Twin Cities kept the gates closed, but the truth? It has a way of finding the light. And right now, it's flooding out. The Minnesota House is usually a place of rehearsed speeches and polite nods, but that all changed when Representative Harry Niska stood up. He didn't just bring accusations, he brought receipts. We're talking about audio recordings, digital ghosts that the establishment prayed would never be heard. These tapes allegedly catch Attorney General Keith Ellison in the room with people who were later shut down by federal fraud investigators. Think about that. This isn't just a bad look, it's a documented nightmare. Niska's voice didn't even flicker as he laid out the grim details. Ellison reportedly promising protection to these figures, telling them to dig in their heels against investigators, all while allegedly taking campaign cash from those very same people. The air in that chamber got real thin, real fast. Every word from those tapes hit like a sledgehammer, shattering the lie that everything was being handled with official oversight. You know how the game is played. When the truth starts to threaten the people in power, the establishment machine kicks into high gear to kill the conversation. As Niska started laying out the facts, he wasn't met with a debate. He was met with a wall of procedural garbage. Point of order, they kept screaming. It was a desperate, transparent attempt to weaponize the rulebook to hide a massive failure. One female representative wouldn't stop interrupting, her voice getting higher and more frantic as she tried to use Mason's manual to gag the record. They'll do anything to keep this out of the history books. It's the standard playbook for the modern left. When you can't argue with the facts, you pivot to procedure. They call it avoiding personalities, but we all know it's just avoiding accountability. All the while, the speaker sat there, a silent witness to the attempted burial of a scandal involving over $250 million. Your money. Money meant to feed hungry kids, instead diverted into a tangled web of shell companies and political favors. This story was never going to stay locked inside the halls of St. Paul. It eventually hit Donald Trump's desk, and once he shared it with the world, this local crisis turned into a full-blown national reckoning. By blowing the whistle on this footage, the former president is shining a bright light on what most of us have suspected for years. There is a deep-seated rot inside the administrative state of these deep blue enclaves. The Feeding Our Future scandal isn't just some boring headline about a nonprofit anymore. It's a glaring symbol of how the system is rigged. People are past the point of being annoyed. They're furious. They want to know why people linked to a massive theft were getting private meetings with the state's top law enforcement officer. It's not just about the $250 million anymore. It's about the total collapse of public trust and the damage done to our legal system. The demand for real justice is getting too loud for them to ignore. The fallout from these tapes is going to be massive. We're looking at potential federal intervention that could completely strip the state of its oversight because, let's be honest, if the Attorney General's office is compromised, the rule of law in Minnesota is a dead letter. People are already calling for the Fraud, Accountability, and Recovery Act to be triggered. They want every single cent of that $250 million clawed back from the greedy hands that took it. Now, the names Keith Ellison, Ilhan Omar, and Tim Walz are being tied directly to a culture that let this corruption thrive. It's a direct hit to the heart of the establishment. What started as an investigation into a few missing meals has turned into a total feast of corruption. The question isn't what happened anymore, it's who's going to prison. We're going to keep following the money and the evidence, no matter how many people try to hit the mute button on those recordings.